Okay, here we go. I think we're live, Steve.
All
Let's
right.
do this. Greetings, everyone. So happy to see you. Thank you for joining us from wherever you are. I will be watching comments in my phone, so don't think I'm texting because I'm not. But I'm so happy to bring you this topic today, which is all about HR and AI and modern trends. And there is nobody that I would rather have at my side than my friend, Steve Cadigan. Steve, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, but I'll just say Steve was the first CHRO from LinkedIn. He has been on my podcast. He is a friend. He's also an outlier. Steve, tell everybody who you are and why you are uniquely qualified to talk
Hey,
about this
Lindsay.
stuff.
Well, it's great to be here. Great to see you again. And just a little bit about my background. So I call myself humorously a recovering human resource professional. I've been in this field for many decades. Probably got started in the mid 80s and worked in a bunch of different industries. The last regular full-time role I had was the first chief HR officer for LinkedIn. And then I left that after about 4 years, which felt like 20, and have been spending the last dozen years just helping leaders, organizations, countries, cities really build compelling talent strategies for a very complex world of work.
I love that.
So I live in California, three kids, three boys, two stepdaughters. And yeah, I love what I do. And I love the topic that we're going to cover today too.
Yeah, I mean, I just love that you have such a varied view of this landscape. So this is going to be a lot of fun. So if we haven't met, I'm Lindsay Dowd. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer for Intry, and one of the offerings that we will be hitting on today is how we talk about outplacement and how there is a soul and a heart that you can have an outplacement. And so we will dig in deep on that. But let's just get into it and talk kind of macro, high level. So the big buzz that everybody's talking about right now is that AI is coming for our jobs. How are you talking to other CHROs and chief people officers about this hot button topic? Because I think there's a little bit of truth, but I think there's also a lot of FUD too. So what are your
Right.
thoughts?
Well, the first thing is, I think we've all learned that we're going to need to become students of AI, regardless of
Agreed.
how we apply it in our personal lives, in our professional lives, in our organizations. Every one of us needs to become students. And the challenge, honestly, Lindsay, with where we are right now is the creators and the founders of these AI solutions and products are as scared as they're excited about the future. And they're also telling us this is not a baked cake, right?
No.
And so we've got something that has enormous potential and enormous power, but also possibilities for, passing through ethical boundaries and limits. And it's a really awkward moment, right? We've got this great promise and this great hope, but also this great fear that accompanies something that we've never seen with the depth and the power and the potential insights that we have access to. So that's the first thing, becoming a student of this. Gosh, I spend probably a couple hours every day reading about this and trying to keep up to date with, and I know you do too.
Yeah.
And it's impossible to feel like you're on top of it,
No,
and that's
it's a tidal wave. And I think it's what people have to remember is it's a paradigm shift. I mean, when the internet first came out, we thought it was taking our jobs. We thought it was gonna, make everybody irrelevant, and it didn't. And it became so commonplace and such a function of business. I think that's what this is as well. And if you are sleeping on AI, you are asleep. So stop doing that. Start playing with it. Pick a tool and just play with it. It's not hard once you get in, but once you start really using it, oh my gosh, your world can open up.
That's right. And that's, I think, the key, which you just mentioned there, which is we really need to experiment.
Yeah.
And we're used to receiving technology and being trained on how to apply it. And now we've basically got these organizations building AI solutions who are saying, here's our baby, you need to raise it.
Yeah.
You need to set the boundaries, you need to set the limits. And we're like, no, where's the manual?
Right.
And they're saying, we're not really sure how it got the solution it got, but because we can't be crystal clear on how it
Yeah.
what resources it access to give you the answers. So that's the challenge that we have, which is also magnified and amplified by the fact that we're all coming to this AI thing from a perspective of fear, and that's
Yeah.
not a great place to be coming to the table, right? So that's why I say, the more you can educate yourself, surround yourself with people who know more about this than you. That's probably why you're attending here. It's like, hey, I want to
Yeah.
pick up some insights that maybe I can leverage, and and that's a good place to start, is who knows more about this than you do. And I think, what we all should be doing right now, one of the things that I've spent probably the last 3 or 4 months trying to do is say, whose voice on this do I want to listen to? I
Yeah.
don't want to just listen to big tech. I don't want to listen to what,
Mhm.
Apple and Microsoft and Meta and, Amazon are telling me, and Google. They have an agenda,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
OpenAI. Who is an objective, unbiased thought leader, or who are the thought leaders? And I think you should all be looking for finding those people. So one of the people that I listen to, for example, is an NYU professor, Connor Grennan. Super interesting, super
Mhm.
insightful. And he is always saying, and he posts, I don't know how he has time to teach and post as much as he does, but he's very active. And that's a good starting place,
Yeah.
right? To sort of find a few people to help you make sense of what's coming down the road.
Yeah, I think that's huge, and I'm such a big believer of surrounding myself with people who are smarter than I am because they lift me up, and whether that was managing teams, that was very much how I like to lead, or now it's the community you keep, who are the people that are doing it really well, and go learn from them. Get in a coffee chat and have a dialogue. I mean, that's how we met, and, we've done podcasts together and now
Right.
this, and I look to you for a lot of advice and counsel in the HR space. I think you're super wise. So one of the topics that comes up a lot, and I think this is such a great one for people to be thinking about, is upskilling. And AI is such a easy way to start upskilling. So I imagine HR leaders are being faced with this, upskilling dilemma of how do we deliver leadership development or content and learning when AI is out there. So what do you say to that?
Yeah, and you're hitting on what I think every profession, not just human resources, but every profession is facing, which
Yeah.
is threat. Is this going to replace my capacity to deliver value?
Yeah.
Again, another really tricky dimension that we haven't faced in the, let's call it the domain of white collar work, to the extent that we have with artificial intelligence. So
Mhm.
how can it help me with training and development? How can it help me with raising the
Yeah.
skills of my talent base? How can it make me, this is the one that I want AI to really help with, how can it make me more aware of the
Mhm.
talent I have? Right? Because biggest problems that I see, let's just set AI aside, biggest organizational challenges I see leaders facing is, I can't hire people as fast as I want to. I
Yep.
can't find as many qualified people. And when I do, they don't stay. And my first reaction is to ask them, hey, listen, before we start talking about recruiting, let's talk about your awareness of all the skills of the people you have, right?
Yeah.
We've talked about this before.
Yeah.
And it's usually limited, or it's very myopic. Oh, if you only know accounting, then that's all you can do. Or if you only know HR,
Mhm.
you couldn't consider investor relations, customer service, sales, marketing. There's so many crossover skills that I'm hoping artificial intelligence can help make us more comfortable to understand how we can combine those, right? So there's some opportunities, some big opportunities there. And I think, if I'm, excited about anything right now, it's companies, big, traditionally conservative companies like Walmart, giving an AI resource, a generative AI tool to their salaried employees, saying, listen, we don't know what this can do, but why don't you play around with it and see if you can lead your teams better, if you can find customer insights that'll help us be more
Yeah.
effective in creating, delightful customer experiences, manage inventory better, communicate better. And they were blown away
Yeah.
by the learnings that they had, so much so they doubled down and said, okay, instead of just 50,000, let's expand it to 150,000 of our, key members on the team. That's awesome. But it's so different, Lindsay, because they're saying, here it is, but we don't know how to use it. So you tell us.
Yeah, but
That's
that's
not
the
how it
thing, it's
works.
a discovery, and
Mhm,
I think,
mhm,
what you need to keep in mind, and, for anybody that is just dabbling or hasn't really dipped their toe in, we all say just start, but you also train it, and you want it to understand your voice. So, if you've written anything, certainly if you've written a book, or if you've given a speech, or if you've, been published somewhere,
mhm.
feed it. Tell it about you, give it your bio, give it your LinkedIn profile, because you want it to understand your voice, you want it to understand your perspective. And then when you ask it things after you've trained it for a little bit, it's going to give you the information that you need and the lens you need to receive it. So
Right.
I think that's such a important piece. But from a company perspective, it's really the Wild West. It's so profound what you can get out of AI tools, and how you deliver them, how you bring them into your workforces is
Mhm.
something everybody should be thinking about. And I remember being at IBM, I was around with really early generation of AI. So when Watson was on Jeopardy, I was there during all that, and
Mhm.
that was wild. And
Mhm.
the same fear that exists now existed then, and then it kind of calmed down a little bit, but we started to realize the impact and the power behind it. But we
Mhm.
also started to realize, okay, this can also go really badly. So can we talk a little bit about ethical guidelines around AI, and how are companies trying to marshal those?
Yeah. Let's start with the first part of that question, how to think about the ethics and the challenges and what could or what possibly could go wrong. My strong recommendation for every organization, particularly human resources, is that you form an ethics advisory board.
Yes.
And for wherever AI is touching your company, whatever project, whatever domain, I look at it like this. You know how on a can of soup or a bag of chips, there's a nutrition label on the back,
Mhm,
how many calories, how much protein, and
mhm.
so forth, what the ingredients are. I think we need to have an AI nutrition label
Label,
that
yeah.
says, what's the impact to our culture? What's the impact to jobs? What's the impact to learning? Where are there ethical challenges that we may face? Let's just take recruiting, for example.
Mm,
There is so much information in the public domain that's hard to find. For example, um, did you buy a house? And if you did, what did you pay for it? Okay. Like I can sort of search it. I could find out what you pay on the taxes, but it's going to take me a while. In some cases, I have
sure.
to go to a courthouse and ask a clerk to give it to me. That's going to be available at the touch of a button pretty soon. And so, is that fair, ethical for me
Mhm.
to seek what your real estate history is
Yeah.
when I'm determining what I should pay you? you know, and the answer
Ooh.
is no, it's not.
It's
But
not.
have we put in a guardrail about that yet? No, we haven't. So I think it's really hard to predict where you're going to cross an ethical boundary. It's really
Right.
hard because we don't fully know yet all the possibilities, and this AI creature is growing in capacity every day in orders of magnitude that we've not seen before, right? So I think getting an AI council together, getting an ethics council, coming up with some sort of AI nutrition on your
Yeah.
projects, and putting, surround yourself with people who know more about this than you, and
Mhm.
then start to try to get some easy wins, some early wins to build your confidence.
Yep.
The biggest question that we all face in moments like this, Lindsay, is okay, let's go benchmark people who've been using this for a while. Nobody has. And that's why it's hard. We're all trying to navigate an ocean without a lot of benchmark
Yeah.
organizations. I get asked all the time, Steve, can you tell us about AI and what are companies like us doing with AI? And I go, what's going to be a short conversation
Yeah, we're
because we're
figuring it
all,
out.
that's right. And that's what's really exciting, but it's
Mhm.
also super challenging because we've not started such a huge, effort with such little, body of information to make us comfortable, right? To give us the reassurance and to give us confidence. And that's why AI is so important for this demographic that we're talking for human resources, because the employee experience is never going to be touched by more things than AI is going to be
Right.
touching it right now in every way. And we're going to have to sort of figure out, like, it's reshaping how jobs are done and
Yeah.
it's changing it. And my challenge to HR leaders around the world is this: that the first thing that I'm seeing most organizations are doing with AI is let's cut costs and let's cut headcount. Okay.
Ah,
So
perfect segue.
that's one way. That's one way to think about it, right? And I know
Yeah.
you want to get into this, the domain of layoffs and staff reductions, but that's about 1% of what AI can really deliver for you. Why are we seeing that first instead of how can we use AI to allow our employees to make more value, to create greater impact, to have more career joy? Why aren't we doing that? Because I think, not because people aren't smart or intelligent, I think it's because that's how we've always used new technology. Let's see how we can do this
Yeah.
faster with less money and apply it. And so our brains are not wired for AI to see there's enormous upside. I think more upside than there is, managing the bottom line of cost and headcount. but it's going to take a little work, and
Well, and
we're flying in the face of the threat of, well, if I do this, maybe my job's going to be irrelevant. I don't want to do it. You see, so we've got that sort of fight or flight challenge for every job
right.
out there. That's not an environment conducive to experimentation, you know?
Well, and let's also remember it's really expensive to hire people. If you can understand who's on your bench and you can understand the talent that already exists, you're saving yourself money. And there are people that
Right.
are already in your world that you don't have to train, that you don't have to pay to recruit, etc. All right, we did get a question.
Okay.
This is from Armin. Says, as a specialist in the AI-driven talent acquisition, I offer encounter companies that perceive AI as too advanced for their current needs or too costly to implement. One of the key challenges is bridging the gap between these perceptions and the tangible value AI can bring to their hiring processes. How do you approach addressing this disconnect? Thank you, Armin.
Well, first off, hi, Armin. It's good to see you. He is a former colleague of mine from my years up in working up in beautiful British Columbia. Yeah, I think this is real, and I think that is the essence behind the question is fear and uncertainty and unknown. Like, I don't know that I want to apply something that I don't have a lot of data around. I don't have a lot of history. I don't have a lot of benchmarks, right? And I think what we have to do is say, well, okay, you can wait, all right? That's one approach, but let's show you some other experiments that are happening right now
Yeah.
that aren't requiring a lot of cost, a lot of effort, and not just in recruiting, but in other places,
Yeah.
right? Of how it's being used to see and to raise the level of confidence, and or you don't have to wait for permission from an if you're in an organization to use AI. You can use it on your own, dramatically. And let's just take, for example, the world of counseling and coaching. Right,
Mhm.
a lot of human resource roles involve enormous amounts of conflict management. One of the greatest tools that AI is delivering us is the ability to get immediate coaching on how can I deliver a tough message. Here's the background of the individual I'm talking to. Here's my concerns. Here's my background.
Yeah.
Here's the difference of opinion we have. I want you, AI, to be an expert negotiator,
Yep.
therapist, whatever, and give me some bullet points that can help me comfortably land a
Yes.
really hard message. That is phenomenal. And if I look at friction in companies, most of the time it's people disagreeing, or
Yeah.
it's a performance appraisal that's like, oh, the manager doesn't
Yeah.
want to deliver it, the employee doesn't want to receive it. I
Mm-mm.
think we've got a really elegant set of resources now
Yeah.
to help prepare us to understand each other better. That's really exciting. Instead, most companies are saying, well, let's replace those 400 customer service reps. Like, okay, that's one approach, but I think this other approach is a lot greater. So
Well,
again, it's hard, Armin, because we're really early. We don't have a lot, and people are really reluctant. We're getting the arms crossed with a lot of organizations saying, well, I haven't seen it applied yet. Okay, well, the winner, the pie is going to go to the person who takes a little bit of risk and who's experimenting right now, and that's really hard for people to get comfortable with because it's not what we're used to.
well, same as we said before, same as the internet. None of us were comfortable at the beginning. We didn't
Right.
know what were we putting all of our secure data out into the world? Well, shit,
Mhm.
we've done that 1,000 times, and
Right.
we've all had our data sold. But I do think the security piece is a real barrier for a lot of companies. But I really also believe that the ones that are resistant, they are the ones that are missing out. And it is a complement. It is not a conflict. You have to just embrace it and recognize that when your people are leveraging it, most people are using it. They're taking a piece of content and they're saying, help me refine this, or help me expand on this, or what am I missing? And that approach is a great way for anybody to get comfortable using it. I don't love the approach of write me something about this. I like to at least start it so it
Mhm.
understands where I'm trying to go with it and then enhance. But the one
Mhm.
caveat I want to give to everybody listening is AI is flawed. There's a lot of inaccuracies, there's like blatant lies that it can tell. You have to check yourself. And especially if you're looking at statistics and numbers, like you cannot just trust it at face value because you could be putting
Mhm.
your company in a rotten spot if it's not true.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
don't do that.
Yeah.
Were you gonna say something?
No, I was just going to reinforce what you said. I really feel we have to be. I'm from the East Coast originally, and I know you live in the East Coast. And
Mhm.
when I grew up in the East Coast, it's basically trust but verify.
That's right.
When I moved to the
Mhm.
West Coast, it's like we just trust you, we love you. You're
Yeah.
great. Like, no, I'm from the East Coast. I'm a little suspicious of
Yeah.
everyone and everything, and I
Worst
think we
mess.
have to have some caution here. And that's the tricky part. Like, what's the right balance of caution versus
Yeah.
experimentation and in going out? And we're gonna make some mistakes, right? And this is the part that I think is really hard for companies. So Armin's question gets at, if you are a risk averse company, okay, this is going to be a hard transition for you.
Yeah.
And if you have a company that's comfortable with experimentation, this is going to be a great moment for you. And now listen, I live in Silicon Valley. It's not a perfect world. There's a lot of pros and there's a lot of cons, but this is a world where experimentation is the norm. And
Yeah.
that's why a lot of technology companies are having a day, because I think the spoils are going to go to the people who are experimenting right now, not the people who are waiting and super conservative and cautious about this. But I understand where the caution comes from.
I
And
think
so that's one thing that's what I say, just as you said earlier, just start somewhere,
mhm.
and then build your confidence and grow from there.
Well, get curious. And I think the coolest thing about AI is just when you think you figured it out, somebody's throwing you a new curveball that you're like, you could do that? What?
Yeah.
I mean, you can create code, not that I know what to do with it,
Mhm.
but I can create code if I wanted to. You can create images that, have been literally like constructed out of the words that you chose.
Mhm.
And I don't mean a word cloud. I mean, like, give me an image of my conversation with Steve Cadigan that we're going to be doing a LinkedIn Live together. And it will take the sentiment from that context and create an image. But like, that's just scraping the surface. There's
Right.
dozens of things that are completely changing the game in this landscape. And to be afraid of it is really just kind of sticking your head in the sands.
Yeah, I mean, think about, like, a lot of the drudgery work in HR traditionally has been, who's doing new hire orientation? Oh, I don't want to do the new hire orientation.
Yeah.
And you've done it 100 times and you feel like a broken record. Like, so, but one of the things that happens when you start growing is you have got to do orientation in new countries and new states and new cities
Yeah.
around the world, and you've got to take into account local sensibilities. AI can help you navigate that. Like, hey, here's our company, here's our vision, mission, values. How would you package that, because we're just hiring a new team in Prague, and we've never dealt with people there.
Yeah.
We need to set up our employee handbook in a new country. I mean, you could, and this
It's
is where
so
in the
cool.
legal domain, I think human resources can really move quickly and lower the expenses around being compliant in local
Yeah.
countries and so forth. Again, it's not perfect, but it's close enough that it's going to avoid you from some big challenges. I had a situation with a friend of mine recently, which is interesting, and I'm sure all you HR people who are dialed in, you get all the calls from all your friends around salary negotiation, or if they got laid off, is this agreement fair or not fair? And so this happens all the time. Well, recently I had a friend of a friend say, hey, Steve, this guy just lost his job, and they're moving really fast, and because they're going to get acquired, and they sort of shoved this separation agreement down his throat. Can you look at it and give him feedback? And I said, well, how much time do I have? They said, a couple hours. I'm like, okay, no problem. They said, you
Yeah.
can do it? I said, 100%. I threw it into Chat GPT. I said, hey, here's the deal. This is the person. This is the company. This is the agreement. It's California. They're over the age of 40. Can you tell me what's missing
Yeah.
that would protect this person? And in a second, I had a dozen amazing points
Mhm.
to help this person. You
Mhm.
know, now this person could have done it on their own, but here's where we are. Like, some people are comfortable going there and asking, and some
Yep.
people aren't,
Yep.
right? And so and again, one of the coolest things as a history major, liberal arts, college student, graduate, that I love about this moment is all the capacity to communicate is one of the power skills that we're seeing right now.
Yes.
And even people like, loftier, HR gurus out there like Josh Burson are saying spoken English is one of the most powerful skills that you have right now, because it's how you prompt,
Oh,
the
I
chat
love that you said
GPT.
that.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that you said that because, I mean, I think a lot of parents see their teenage kids. You and I have kids the same age of, you're wondering, God, this is how they're going to communicate in the world. And even they I mean, I know my twins are dabbling and kind of seeing how it can tweak work that they're working on. And, I'm very explicit with them. This is not a cheat. This is a refinement tool for you.
Mhm.
But we did get another question
Yeah.
from Tanya Fierro, who said, I need more information on how to differentiate between the types of data we can enter into AI and what data we should withhold into the various types of tools. There's a lot of hesitation by legal, rightly so. Do you have any tips on how HR can help our people discern when to use and what data is okay to share?
I mean, the laws about what's ethical and what's not ethical are still the same laws, right? So, and I think it's just what's trickier about this is not what data you're putting in, because we've always known what data is appropriate and what
Yep.
data is inappropriate. What we don't know is what can it go get that we don't know it's
Mhm.
getting that might cross the line, like the example I mentioned earlier
Yep.
around home ownership. Other publicly available data, by the way, that's sort of creepy, but it's available, is divorce history. Has
Yep.
someone been divorced or not? Right. And it's like, is that relevant to a
If
hiring
you're
decision?
stopping yourself to ask, should I be doing this? You probably shouldn't
There you go. That's right. And
do
so
that.
that's right. There is no change in common sense or good judgment. I think we just have to do the best that we can. And
Yep.
that's the point here on everything, right?
Yep.
Everything, like, listen, we'll be honest, and there's probably some lawyers or some, recovering lawyers that are listening in right now. If you follow the letter of the law with every requirement that we have to follow, you're going to be out of business.
That's right.
Not to suggest that you shouldn't, but what if you get challenged, I think the governing approach is, are you making a good faith effort to do this the right way?
Well,
Right.
and I also think too, I mean, I certainly was on enough executive committees that we were doing, very specific project work that was not to be shared widely. You can't put that in a tool. You can put an excerpt and help you refine it or help me figure out about another way to say something. But
Mhm.
if it's a top secret thing, or if it's confidential, don't put it in there. That is going to get you into trouble. So I hope that
Correct.
answered your
Correct.
question, Tanya.
Yeah, and Tanya, I mean, it really is a great question, and again, it's coming from a place of fear. Like, whoa, this train's moving really quickly. We're going to run over some people that we don't even
Yeah.
know by accident. What can we do to try to avoid it? Is you put an ethics council together, get a
Yes.
group of people on this, so it's not one person having to make an impossible judgment decision. Right? Try to
Yeah.
get some other experts in. Maybe form a council with some of your peers and other companies, sort of say, hey, let's talk about what's fair game in recruiting, what's fair game in background checking, what's fair game
Yeah.
in other places, right? And let's agree on a certain standard that we think is reasonable. And again, the reason we all feel this way, because we're early in the frontier and we don't
Mhm.
have a lot of
Yeah.
institutional data to give us confidence yet.
And there will be those pillar cases that, change the way we do things, and they just haven't happened yet. But I would say listen to your gut, listen to your heart, and if you think it's a topic that shouldn't be out for public consumption, perhaps don't put it there. Um,
Right.
okay, I want to
Right.
shift gears a little bit
Mm.
and talk about a topic that you and I love so much, which is leading with heart. And at first, I want to just make a statement and saying, if you do not have a CPO or a CHRO in your company and your company is of reasonable size, you are doing it wrong. And the biggest thing that I see companies goof on, and I really want your take on this, but the big thing that I see them goofing on is keeping it to a VP of HR and not giving them a seat at the table. And then further, only putting them in a reactive position. And I witnessed many, many, many HR partners that I was never able to interact with, get to know, because I could only use them when there was something on fire. And it took until one leader late in my time at
Mhm.
IBM who was like, hey, Linz, I'm bringing our HR partner to our sales meeting. And this is a sales leader talking, guys. I'm not an HR person. And I said, why? Not that I questioned what she was doing. I just never
Mhm.
saw it before. And she said,
Why
well,
are we in trouble?
yeah,
Is there an
because
investigation
how
going on?
how
Yeah.
can he help us if he doesn't know us? And I was
Mhm.
like, "Well, that's just ridiculous. Of course we should do that. Why aren't other leaders doing that?" So as
Mhm.
you're talking to
Mhm.
other CHROs and CPOs, what are they doing? What are they saying with regard to having a seat at the table?
I think this is one of the greatest moments of opportunity I know we've heard this a lot in the history of HR, but this is one of the greatest moments of opportunity that we have as a function, because we have the capacity to really highlight and discover talent insights to a degree we've never had before, and really help, produce better decisions. Whether it's on hiring, a lot of the great companies out there, the Microsofts and the Amazons and Googles, ran ahead and said to AI, they're solving for volume and recruiting,
Yep.
and they put all these prompts together, and they started getting the outcomes of continued bias, continued poor selection process, because that was the history the AI was trained on.
Yeah.
and so if even the people who are making these tools are finding through their own trial and error that there's challenges, it really puts us in a position where, like we were talking about earlier, proceed with caution. But I really think, to your question around where can we really see the optimal impact, is with data and insights to help produce better decisions.
Yeah.
Now, one of the pet peeves that I've always had about HR is that sometimes HR wants power, and so they're going to hold on to, who gets promoted, who gets salary budget. Yes, you can hire that person. No, you can't promote that person, and
Right.
things like that. And I think that's very destructive, because it puts them in the role of gatekeeper.
Yep.
And HR has this really dynamic tension, which is we're trying to grow the business, but we also have a compliance function. Like,
Right.
we can't let you break the law. We can't let you,
Yeah.
do something that could come back and hurt the company. So, and a lot of times managers say, well, you're slowing me down, or I don't want to hear that. And that causes friction in the relationship. And that's a miss.
Yeah.
Right. But I think the great HR teams, and the way you really earn a place, is by recognizing the most important table is the talent table, the talent
Yep.
insights. And so build a table together. Don't fight to get into their table,
Mm-mm.
but let them, build a new table together, which is, listen, we're only going to win by creating value through people. We have more insight on people and talent and motivators
And
and all that than anyone. So
Mhm.
let's show our insights to build our capacity to really help you make better decisions, and that's another tricky part about HR. There's a lot of folks out there, and this is why I almost didn't get into HR, who want to be the hero in HR. And I think I want HR people to do great things, but the greatest wins I ever had were preventing someone from making a decision that was going to be bad for them or bad for the company. And I can't run through the hallways and say, I just stopped the CEO from really making a big goof. And the CEO can't say, hey, Steve's really great because he really stopped me from.
Imagine if you could.
That's right. And so feeling, a sense of satisfaction in the darkness of, moving some things invisibly is really a powerful thing. And if that,
Right.
if that doesn't suit you, okay. But I think that's one of the tricky parts of this one, is that, I think the greatest work I do, most people never saw,
Yeah. I
Yeah.
agree with everything you said, and I'll just add that, your people are your most important thing. And if you think otherwise and you are managing solely from, a finance mindset, you won't believe that. And you're going to hurt your people, you're going to hurt your reputation, and you're going to watch your best people leave.
Right.
I
Right.
watched
Let
that
me
happen.
reframe, this topic just a little bit,
Yeah.
because I think the best work I ever did, in the world of HR, was because I had a great leadership team that had a strong desire to co-own the talent strategy with me.
Mm.
And they weren't looking to me to, like, hey, you go fix the diversity.
Yeah, yeah,
Hey,
yeah.
you go fix the comp problems. You go fix recruiting. They're like, Steve, what can we do so we're better as a company? And I think the greatest companies are the ones where the talent agenda is shared in sales, in other departments across, product, engineering, marketing, whatever. Everyone feels an ownership for that, because our
Right.
culture your culture should never be owned by HR.
Nope.
HR should help leaders be better at it. And that's part of the, like, if you want to be a hero and get a lot of applause, but if you want to make other people better, this is the place for you.
Well, and the culture is how people feel about their job. So if you ask somebody, how's your job? They're
Mhm.
answering two things. One, do they like their boss? And two, how do they feel about
Mhm.
where they work? And so if either of those things are negative, their work is also going to be subpar. So making sure that you are giving people the platform to do the jobs they were hired for is paramount. But also understanding, this is a question I always asked as a leader and I always coached other leaders to ask, is how can I be the best leader for you? And when you understand the talent you have in-house on your team, you can better delegate, you can better promote, you can better seek out HR to say, hey, I've got this person who's really great at marketing. They're in a sales role, but I think they'd be better. How do I connect them with the right people to get them talking to those people? Like that, that's what a good leader should do. And you said something when we first met, and you said it on the podcast, that you knew as the CHRO of LinkedIn, these people that were in your, in your domain were not going to be lifers. They were going to be there for a couple of years and move on. So why not make that time with you the most impactful, the most meaningful, the most rewarding and fulfilling? And I love when leaders can take that mindset and accept that you don't own these people. They're invited to your family, your party, your company for a period of time. But they will take whatever they learn there and travel on. So make sure those memories are good.
Yeah. And in that space of, how can we harness this moment as HR leaders to really deliver something special? One of the things that I spent a couple years on at LinkedIn was trying to identify who are our best people and what can we learn from those best people so we get more best people in here.
Yeah.
And that was just a grind. We're like,
Hard.
looking at CVs, we're looking at, is there a trend between what companies they work for, what schools they went to, what languages they knew, how many degrees they have. We're looking for all kinds of correlations. Who are the people that interviewed them that maybe are better at identifying? We have AI to give us so much help in that regard right now. Like, who are our superstars? And the tricky part of this is, is what is a superstar? Even on your own, even on the best executive teams, there's going to be a difference of opinion. That person's an easy grader. That person's grades too hard. So we've got this ocean of subjectivity that we have to navigate through. But at scale, that stuff works its way out, and AI can really help you, feed it. Who are the top, who are the top performers? Is there and here's all their background, all their history, everything, find some insights for us that you might not see. That's really powerful. I know some organizations right now that are using AI, and this is really, and again, sometimes we border creepy and insightful, right? They have fed AI every company all hands meeting, every word that was spoken. Okay. It's a company that I've done some work with, and they are maniacal around, are we consistent with what we speak, with everything we say our culture should be about? And it's almost like a word cloud, but every company all hands meeting, every email to all employees, they say, is the language supporting our culture? Now, I've never seen an organization do something like that.
I love that, because if you ask most employees, or even the leaders, what is the mission of this company? And they'll be like, oh, it's on that wall over there. Hold on. But it's not part of their vernacular, right? Yeah, it's not. So by checking yourself and making sure your messaging is on point, that's huge. I love that they're doing that. That's really, really brilliant. And that shows a lot of heart. That's an incredible success story I hope they share.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
I'll share another one, which is super interesting, a little more on the, this feels uncomfortable side of the house.
Yeah.
So one of the organizations that I've been working with for years is an organization that does sort of compliance training, sexual harassment awareness, and so forth and so on. And over time, they started getting into this domain of, well, instead of just doing the training, how about if we ask, do you see this in your company? And then if you do see it, do you feel comfortable addressing it, raising it? And if you have, what happened? And so taking a compliance training moment and turning it into a cultural assessment barometer. And
so cool.
And then they move to, you know what, we're not just going to give the training. We're going to give you a 1-800 call someone for advice that's confidential. That, because everyone, who doesn't need some advice on some complex issue at work? Like all of you that have a partner know when they come home, they're talking about something that didn't go well at work at some point, right? And you're sitting there trying to navigate and you don't have all the information, but you're trying to do the best that you can. That's really, really, I think, super interesting where AI can help serve us, giving us some of these insights.
All right. Well, I want to shift into one of my favorite topics, which is not a favorite thing, but layoffs. So we know that there's massive amounts of layoffs that happened last year that are continuing into this year. There are websites that certainly point to when they're going to be laying people off, which I think is bananas, but that's usually a response to shareholders.
Yeah.
So what can we be thinking about when it comes to putting the heart in layoffs? Because this is something I care deeply about. But what are you hearing out when you're talking to the other CHROs in the world? And are they thinking about this? Is this a topic? I mean, outplacement services is not a new thing, but how we do it really matters.
Such an important topic, and I'm glad you brought it up. So here's what I want to do in thinking about this layoff thing. I want to step back and say, why are we seeing so many layoffs? What's going on? Is there some sort of macroeconomic issue? And the truth is, there is, and that is we have found ourselves in a situation where the need for new skills has accelerated so fast. Many companies are finding themselves with a workforce that, okay, they're good or they're okay, but we're going to need to shift the skill sets to people that have different skills. And that has never happened at the pace we've seen right now. And so while that's happening, a lot of the technology companies in particular who are shedding a lot of staff used to have a lot of spare talent around because they're doing a lot more experimentation, and now they're doing less experimentation. And so the need to have those people isn't there. So I think as human resource leaders, I think we've got to ask ourselves, hey, are we able to train people so that we can keep up with the need for new skills? Or are we just going to commit that we're just going to go to the open market when we need new skills, and we're going to take the cultural hit regularly? Like, it's going to happen a lot more, regularly than I think people realize. The need for upskilling and the need for new skills. Okay. And so I think the companies that are going to win, and again, you can't do this if you're a 50-person company. You probably can if you're 1,000 plus. You're going to have to become a business that's a business school, I think, if you want continuity. And the way you do that is you say, how long is it going to take me to get all those new skills versus how long is it going to take me to continually upskill and upgrade my talent that I have? And I don't know, and what's the dollar cost and what's the time expense. And the reason this is hard is because an employee is usually in the business plan delivering value, not learning. Right. Okay. You've got that one, maybe 5 or 6 days a year where you can go to a seminar or you can do some online learning or whatever. I don't think that's going to work in the future. I think learning is going to be a core deliverable, because that I believe is one of the power skills of the future. Is the capacity to learn new things quickly is so important. So how are we going to feed that? And that's what I think people are loyal to. We talked about this on an earlier podcast. People are loyal to learning.
That's right.
And it's not like you need a class or a teacher to come in. It's a new project, a new assignment, a new challenge, or a rotation for a couple of days, a week, or whatever. Like, we're going to have to do that because we need people to be more versatile in a market that's changing so fast. And that, I think, will mitigate the pressure on layoffs a little bit. But we have to start saying, is this, is our ability to see the future better than in the past? No, it's harder to see the future, right? And so, what can we do? And that gets the final point I want to make on this one, because I give this so much thought, Lindsay, is the fact that I think leaders as a company, we should care about our people even after they leave. And so if we know we're probably going to need to move some people out pretty regularly because we can't upskill the people as fast as we can, how can we make a bridge to help them find other roles, right?
Yes. And that's where we come in. Yes.
That's right.
But the point, beautiful segue. The point that I want to make to that is, if you are faced with layoffs, and I say this as, CHRO, CPO, GM of a company, it doesn't matter. If you are faced with that, you have choices. And I know when I had to lay people off, which I dreaded, I didn't sleep. It was super stressful for me. But my people knew me. They knew my style, and they knew I was reading from a script, and they knew that it wasn't my words, But if I had something like what we've built now, which is our outplacement alternative, this way to take people to their next chapter. I know you have to leave me, but I'm going to give you these tools that are going to carry you long past you getting this job. They're going to give you life skills. It's
Hmm.
2 days, it's super intense, but it's going to give you everything you need. And you're going to knock it out of the park once you're through it. I would
Hmm.
have felt so much better as a leader. And then to be able to see them shine and thrive and move
Yeah.
into the next thing. There's something beautiful that happens when people go through our outplacement alternative. Their shoulders go back. They feel like they have a brand. They know their story. They know how to talk to people. They know how to network, and they're not afraid to do it. And that,
Right.
when you lose your job, I don't care who you
Yeah.
are, it's personal. It's supposed to be business, but it's personal. It's your blood, sweat, and tears. And when you can give people back some dignity and give them, the tools they need to move them into that next chapter, you are a very good leader.
Yeah, and you know what happens, Lindsay, and this is in one of the questions, embedded in one of the questions Tanya asked earlier, which
Yeah.
is, if you've not laid people off before, you are going to listen to the lawyers
Yep.
because their mission is to protect the company.
That's right.
And sometimes, and there's nothing wrong with protecting the company, but sometimes you don't need to be as aggressive as the legal advice is suggesting that you be.
That's right.
And you can build a relationship with someone. For example, let's cut off their IT right away. Let's
Oh,
walk them out right now. Like, really? What do you think they're really going to do? And what message is it going to send? Is that really a risk we're taking? I will tell you, I've lost count of the times I've had to let someone go, and they said to me, "This must be really hard for
oh,
you."
same.
They're thinking
That was,
about
I,
me,
I couldn't
you know?
believe when I
They're
heard that
not
the first
throwing
time.
chairs or going in, lighting a fire to the, file cabinet.
No,
No, that's not something that happens.
no.
So be mindful that your role in HR is to measure the legal risk, but do the right thing and set
That's
it
right.
up in a way that, the company that crushed it during the pandemic, I thought, and did a brilliant job with this was Airbnb.
Mm-hmm.
They converted their entire IT department. That's right, Jeremy. I see you listening here. They converted their whole IT organization to be an outplacement firm for
Mm-hmm.
every Airbnb employee who's leaving. And that was mind blowing. They said,
Amazing.
it is we are devastated we have to let people go, but no one's using Airbnb right now. We just can't float. And for us to save
That's
the
right.
ship, we're going to have to throw some great people overboard, but we hope we can bring you back.
That's right.
And you know what that did? That was a layoff that built loyalty. Those people were more loyal when they were laid off than they were before because they saw their company was going out of the way. And that is such the exception. We see the complete opposite from a
I know.
company that I won't mention, Meta, who's saying we're going to get rid of all those losers, all 5,000 of them
Yeah.
that are here. And I'm like, why would you do that? Right? Why would you broadcast to the world that you're letting low performers go and mitigate their chance of finding another job and getting branded as a low performer?
Yeah.
It's just, that's such a disappointing way to do it. So, I
Amazing.
think, use those moments, like you say, lead with heart.
That's
It's
right.
not hard, and it'll build loyalty like you won't believe.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Well, we are out of time, my friend. This was so much fun. I would love to do this again. So we'll have to ask the
Let's
masses
do it.
if you want another one of these. Maybe we'll do one in the second half of the year. But guys, thank you for listening. Steve, thank you as always. I love doing these with you. And guys, get out there, lead with heart, take care of your people. You have choices, make them good, and have the best day. Thanks, Steve.